Well, thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here today and to give you an overview of Aboriginal Consultation and Engagement at PTI. And mainly the focus of my discussion is going to be on engagement piece rather than the consultation. We've talked about the processes. And we have a number of consultations that we're doing right now. And I think we've completed 7 this year. We have 2 on the go, and working, of course, with the Alberta government representatives and the identified First Nations on our projects. But our projects, as you're going to see, are rather small compared to the resource extraction and the mining industry. They're large and enter into impact benefit agreements. And I'd like to provide an overview of PTI Group to put everything in a context. What does the PTI Group do, and where do we do these things? And a little bit of a background on that. I'm going to tell a story about our Aboriginal recruitment process and share some of our outcomes. And I have a distinct pleasure of working with our last presenter, Sandy Sanderson, actually in 2 different career opportunities. While I was at NAIT, Sandy was at NAIT, and working there. And then Sandy lured me over to PTI when he was the director, and I worked directly for Sandy. So it's a pleasure to see Sandy here today, and Sandy was very instrumental in some of our outcomes, which I'll talk about. I'm going to touch a few on our Aboriginal training initiatives and then some contributing factors that have led to the outcomes that we've been able to achieve. And then there'll be some time perhaps for some questions. PTI Group is a vertically integrated company. And what we do is build, design, we build, we install, and we also operate accommodations. Our design work, and at PTI we have lots of opportunities in the design area for electrical technicians, engineers, civil engineers, CAD/CAM, people to design our projects. And our projects are designed mainly by industry to meet their particular needs, and also by our staff. Because we're a vertically integrated company, oftentimes our staff make recommendations on how we can improve the flow of goods, the flow of people at our accommodations facilities. And PTI provides remote accommodations for the oil patch industry and the mining sector. We have 2 factories in Canada and 1 in Johnstown, and it's very much a production line. And we need electricians, we need plumbers, we need carpenters, we need workers. And we produce 10 of those units every week come off of our production line. And so they're located here in Edmonton, and we have hired First Nation and Métis people from both Edmonton as well as in some of the surrounding First Nations. We do all the land work that's necessary, or have that done. And of course, we have to consult with the province, because in many cases they're our landlord. We lease those lands. And then we do the whole installation of those projects. We require cranes to lift them up, trucks. And so there's all kinds of contractual opportunities available to First Nations around the development of our particular accommodations. The accommodations industry has changed over the last years, mainly driven by industry. There's no longer any wash cars where there's a little gang where everybody goes to this one big washroom and you're sharing rooms with other workers. Those days are over now. And everyone wants their own washroom in every unit. Everybody wants to have a good meal, and of course they want to have all kinds of different recreational amenities at the facility so that they have things to do within the evening. A lot of our guests are industrial workers. They come up for a period of time, stay at our facilities throughout Western Canada. And up in Western Canada, we have approximately 15,000 rooms available, and there's a concentration of 12,000 rooms right now in Fort McMurray. And the company is expanding our operations in Fort McMurray and in other places in Western Canada. We're developing some new lodges in Kitimat and in the Prince Rupert region. We've just opened up some in Saskatchewan, and we're working and partnering with the First Nations around those particular areas. This is a picture of Wapasu Creek Lodge. Each one of these runs has 3 stories, has 100 rooms. So at that facility right there, there's just over 6,000 rooms. Recently, I was in Toronto and I stayed at the Delta Chelsea. This is a Delta hotel, and there's a plaque on the wall saying, "Oh, the Delta Chelsea is the largest hotel in Canada." And I went up and I asked the clerk there. I said, "Oh, geez, largest hotel in Canada?" He said, "Yes." I said, "How many rooms do you have here?" He said, 1,400. We've got 6,000 at that site alone. All of the land clearing work was contracted out, all the paving, all the snow removal, all of that kind of stuff has been contracted out. And a large portions of those work have gone to Aboriginal contractors, both Métis and First Nations, that are in the Fort McMurray region. This is a picture of the Penday Lodge right behind it. There's an additional 1,200 rooms at that facility now. The site's all paved and so on. This is parking for buses and so on. So between these 2 sites, there's over 7,000 rooms. Right now, it's at 100% occupancy. 7,000 rooms up here in remote. That's like a small city. It's like a large town. There's many First Nations in Alberta that don't have 7,000 members, and we have 7,000 rooms and can accommodate them. You know, the meals is something like 4.5 million meals a year PTI prepares. That's more than 1 meal for every Albertan is prepared through the company. The facilities up here, and these are actual shots. This is a typical dining area at one of our lodges. We try to make it homey. The tables are movable, so if there's a big group want to sit down, they can join the tables, or a small group and so on. There's recreational facilities, weight rooms, exercise rooms, and certain guests want certain amenities. You know, the trade folks, the journeymen, what do they want? Pump iron, work that Nautilus equipment, and the technicians and the managers, they want cardiovascular, so we have bicycle rooms and treadmills for them. And of course, there's also rooms for women only as well, so they can have their workout without a bunch of guys leering at them. We also have nice large entranceways in our facilities and so on. And a turnaround day, you might have 800 guests moving out, another 800 guests moving in. So we've learned through experience, and that's one of the advantages of being an integrated company, is that not only do we build, we operate. And so when we notice that, geez, our lobbies are not big enough, we got to make them bigger, we've got to kind of have better movement of people. We can do that. We can build it in, and we have that first-hand experience to do that. We have foosball machines and recreation facilities. And this was our very first lodge called Beaver River Executive Lodge. It's just north of Fort McMurray at the Fort Mackay turnover. And, PTI was very innovative when they built this. It was the Field of Dreams concept. Build it and they will come. And sure enough, they came. And we built another one behind it, and another one, and another one, and another one. And all went with the 3-story concept. And now that's become industry standard with our competition. At PTI, and we developed a recruitment process, and I remember coming to PTI when Sandy hired me and said, well, geez, how many Aboriginal people do we have working in this company? Don't know. We don't know. Well, geez, we've got to do something about that. Indeed, we do. There was no strategic plan until Sandy came, and it was through his vision that he put in a strategic plan. And I might add that strategic plan model now, Sandy's been adopted throughout the company in other different departments. And we're now into our third strategic plan that's all been accepted by our executive and so on. So, you know, there's a legacy there in terms of the vision that was put forward and the structure of that plan, which is continuing on today. There was little research performed in some of the First Nation communities. We found out people would go, oh, there's a First Nation up there near Fort McMurray, let's go and visit them, and they wouldn't know what the demographics was about, how many people were there, who was chief, any of those kind of things. They just kind of arrive and say, oh, we'd like to hire some of your members, and things didn't work. There was little face-to-face contact, and really there was unable to recruit and to retain Aboriginal people within the company. But I think the one thing is that the Director of Human Resources, he was really very instrumental, but there was a sincere desire to change. And Sandy talked about corporate ignorance, and we encounter that an awful lot at our company. Some people, vice presidents, you know, very senior people come in. What's the name of that Métis chief again, Steve, over there? Well, the Métis don't have chiefs. They have presidents. Oh, I didn't know that. And that kind of thing. So there is still a lot of that we're dealing with on an ongoing basis. But there was that desire. So we sat down and we developed a recruitment model, and we chose a First Nation as a pilot project to try out that model. This is our very first group. We hired and we partnered with Saddle Lake Cree Nation, just east here of Edmonton near St. Paul, and we chose Saddle Lake for a pilot project. One of the reasons I had pre-existing relationships already developed. I knew people in the community. And so that's good. If I knocked on their door, gave them a call, they would answer my call and see me. And they have a large population. There's 8,000 members living at Saddle Lake. There's a large community. You know, the smallest community in Alberta has under 100 members. And the largest is the Blood Tribe down in southern Alberta. They're over 12,000 members in their particular community. So we chose one that had a large population base to draw on. The second thing we chose Saddle Lake for is their administration staff is very stable. Their HR department had been there for well over 10, going on 15 years, same staff. Chief and council was very stable, and so there was no political or governance issues. There wasn't turnover in staff within the department. So we had that to work with. As Sandy pointed out, you know, not all First Nations are alike, and some are very business-like and some are not. So we went and we met with them, and we talked to them about our process. And in the process, we need to have the First Nation human resource development groups involved from the get-go. They have to be involved in helping us make selections. They have to be involved in the process. They have to be involved in the interviews. And of course, they have to be involved in the follow-up, because just because the person is employed now doesn't mean that they're not going to need some kind of supports in order to keep them employed. And it's in everyone's best interests that if we're going to take somebody that's on social assistance and provide them with the job, then you don't want to see them in 2 weeks back on social assistance. We want to get them off of social assistance and continue to work. So the First Nations help us with the resumes, the applications, the screening, interviews, and so on. And then we come to the point of overcoming some barriers. With this particular group, this was the first group. This picture was taken in April 2010. And we still have half of those, just under half of those are still working for PTI at our facilities. When we interviewed them, half of them had licenses and no vehicles, and the other half had vehicles and no licenses. And we realized we had a transportation barrier. And how are we going to solve that transportation barrier? Because we want people on time at our sites. And that's as simple as that. And we don't hire people, we don't have excess people standing around to come and take their place. And if 3 people are not in the kitchen at 3 a.m. in the morning, then that means breakfast is going to be delayed, or rooms aren't going to be cleaned. And that's what our guests want: good food, good meal, on time, nice and clean room. So we looked at a number of different options. Well, what about carpooling? Well, what happens if the person with the car quits? Then what are we going to do? Or what happens if the car breaks down? Now we got a whole bunch of people late. Well, what about busing? Let's bus them. Let's look at bus. So we looked at the bus routes, and in this particular case, Saddle Lake would have to change buses, those workers, 3 times in order to get to site. Like, the reality is they might do it once, they might do it twice, but after the 3rd time, they're going to get pretty sick and tired of changing buses in order to get up to one of our sites. So we had a transportation allowance, and we looked at transferring the transportation allowance to the First Nation, and the First Nation provides the transportation to site. And it worked. And the people sign off on that transportation allowance, and Saddle Lake now has 3 buses. We're going up to Fort McMurray every week. They're transporting approximately 100 of their members to site. And what this has done is created another little business for Saddle Lake. They've got a little busing operation going on. It's created a couple of more jobs in Saddle Lake. And the beautiful thing about it is our workers that they're transporting, they don't have to worry about, oh God, how am I going to get home? Oh geez, there's a snowstorm, I might miss my bus. Or oh, the car broke down, what am I going to do? There's no panic. They arrive at the band office, and we drive them to site, and then we pick them up at site and drive them home. And in safety, we provide those drivers with a room, we provide them with meals overnight, because we don't want them all of a sudden after they picked up some driving back to Edmonton. That's not safe. So let's have, you got 7 hours of driving. We don't want to see you driving 14 hours a day. That's just not right. We have 5 hubs, and what we've done is created Aboriginal hubs. And these are long-term working relationships with particular First Nations. And I guess the nice thing about being in industry rather than government is we can choose who we want to partner with, and we can pick and choose those sites and those First Nations. And as Sandy's pointed out, there's no 2 that are the same. They're all different. Some are large, some are small. Some have got well-developed business entities like Goodfish. Some do not. Some are in dire poverty and that kind of thing. So you have to know who you're working in. But with our hubs, we work directly with the HR departments in the hubs. We do recruitments on a regular basis to fill our position. Yes, or a group of reserves. So Saddle Lake is the hub, and they draw people from Kihiwan and other First Nations in there. And we have a hub in Hobima, and there's 4 First Nations in Hobima, but it's run through one particular First Nation who contacts the rest. And so we have a point of contact right at the community level, and it's not one-offs. This is a long-term, and that helps develop the relationship in engagement. So here's our outcomes. We have a total of 268 First Nations people, which represents 9.2% of PTI's total workforce. That's the total workforce. Buffalo Métis Catering is a joint venture with 5 Métis locals in the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. And for the most part, we have been sending our Aboriginal employees to Buffalo Métis Catering operations. They're the large ones. They're those nice big ones that I showed you the pictures of. And for a number of reasons, Buffalo Métis Catering is a unionized operation, and of course the wages and the benefits are second to none in the industry. And up at Buffalo Métis Catering, it's 11.1% of our workforce. At Wapasu Creek Lodge, the big one that has 6,000, we have the highest concentration of 103, which is 14.2%. At one factory in Edmonton, 24 at 10, and a second one, 23 at 13%. And I have to correct this slide, and thank you very much, Dennis, for that recent stat. It's gone up from 5.8 to 6.2% and that. So overall, the company, this is the Aboriginal population in Alberta, and overall our company's at 9.2, not quite twice as much as the population. So we've been engaging and hiring Aboriginal people throughout. Our retention rates thus far, and we still have lots of work to do. Our non-Aboriginal retention rate is 76%. Our Aboriginal retention rate is 65. So it's lower then. And we're looking into reasons why, and we're looking into ways and means that we might improve that retention rate. But oftentimes, it's like the last 10 pounds that you're trying to lose in a diet. It's the hardest to lose. And so this last 10%, 11%, we want to close that gap. But the point is, having a data tracking system gives us this information. Because otherwise, we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know what's going on. We wouldn't know where people are, how many. And the other number that we track is the number of Aboriginal people that are in management positions. And last year it was 9, and now it's up to 13 that are in management positions. And that's a good number to see grow. We want to see people grow, because the First Nations communities tell us, we want to see people not just be, we want to see people move laterally within your corporation. And there are now some training initiatives that are going on at a corporate-wide basis to give people supervisory skills. So hopefully we'll see that 13 climb to 20, climb to 25, and on its way up. We've done a number of training initiatives, and to date we've, the graduation for the 7th Camp Cook program, it's being run with the Rupert's Land Institute right now. The graduation is on Friday up at one of our facilities. Nate is providing the first level of apprenticeship cooking at the site, and we run it at a site, the training. Rather than the students coming down to Edmonton, have to have rehousing, and they're there 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. If they're going to go and work in a camp, you might as well get used to living in a camp and learning the PTI protocols in the kitchen, working on PTI equipment, because we're going to give you a job and it might be right at that facility or on that equipment. So, and it's also a testing ground. Some of the graduates have said, you know what, I like cooking, but I don't think I can handle living in camp. And camp life offers a different dynamic. You're away from your family. You're gone for extended periods of time. And the #1 recreational activity is gossip. I'm not going to tell you what they're gossiping about, but you can imagine there's gossip. So, you know, I tell Dennis something about Sandy Sanderson, and then you go and tell Sylvia, and then you tell Andrea, and it goes around the room and it comes back to Sandy. Well, my God, the story's been distorted, and now Sandy and I are working in the kitchen. He is carving up fruit for the vegetables, and then for the salad bar, and he's mad at me. It can interfere. Camp life is not for everyone. You can't get away from your co-workers. Even if you like them or you don't like them, you're stuck with them. We run them at site. To date, 66 have started. We're getting a full 10 on this last group. 57 have graduated, so our grad rate on the Camp Cook program is 86.4, and they'll take on positions as second cook in our different facilities. We've had 3 trade-related training initiatives with First Nations. 2 have been in Hobima, and 1 has been here with OT Now, Employment and Training, Urban Aboriginal Initiative, and they are feeding us with some factory workers, people with having some carpentry skills, a little bit of electrical skills, a little bit of plumbing skills, and so on. We provide a tour of the factory prior to the program, so they have an idea of where they may be working. And we were just meeting with OT Now, planning out the next one, and we're going to run that program next summer, and then they'll graduate, or beginning in April, and then they'll graduate at the end of August and go through it. And most of the programs that we've had, our training initiatives, have been funded through Alberta Human Services. And I must say they've got some wonderful programs for Aboriginal training to employment. So, and it involves, it's like a tripartite agreement in the sense that there's the government funding, a First Nation must be, or a Métis organization must be involved, and then of course industry must be on board to hire those graduates from the program. We've had great success. I travel the country quite a bit, and Manitoba, all over, and meet with government folks, and I'll tell you, other provinces do not have the funding that's available like the Alberta government does for training to employment. So you guys should be congratulated. Yes?
You were talking about the 2 musts. What about the third one? Does that training program also apply to, the accreditation? How much of that is transferable?
Yes, our program is the first level of apprenticeship training, and after the exam, they're allowed to go and challenge those exams.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, if they decided that they didn't want to be a camp cook, would they be able to go into NAIT's culinary arts program? That's my question.
Well, the NAIT culinary program is different than apprenticeship. And well, the NAIT culinary program is a 2-year program. You need a grade 12 to qualify. You don't need grade 12 to be a journey to go into an apprenticeship program in cooking.
Too much value then, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of educating someone for a job.
Is what?
There just needs to be better return on your investment, for educating someone to get a job.
Well, they end up getting a job. They can end up being indentured as a cook, and they qualify to challenge, and they meet all the requirements of the Alberta apprenticeship program. So that's the nature of the program that we have, because that fills our need for the employment.
That fills your need.
Pardon me?
That fills your need.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Steve, I think you're talking about there's 2 programs being talked about. One is the apprenticeship program, so they actually become a journeyman. So once they become a journeyman, they can go cooking in Hong Kong or Australia.
Anywhere.
Well,
but the culinary arts program is a different program.
Exactly. So my question then is, in order for the First Nations communities to get better return on their value for the education dollars or training dollars that they provide to the community members, it should be something that they would be able to, there's just better return on it if community members are able to transfer,
No, and I agree, and I agree that there needs to be more monies put into education, and there definitely needs to be more training going on. The programs that the Alberta government has available are programs that are going to lead to employment. That's the goal at the end, is that there's a job at the end, a full-time job at the end of the program. Other provinces don't have those monies available. And it's wonderful that our province does and recognizes that there needs to be monies put in. Is it enough? No, it's not. Should there be more? Yes, and definitely, yes, there should. But PTI is on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's not our responsibility to provide education to First Nation communities.
I see that as a way of our leaders need to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of education.
They do.
And where it's supposed to take us to.
Yeah. Now, once you're
business capacity and whatnot.
Exactly. Once you're a PTI employee, PTI has a $3,000 annual allowance for all of our employees to continue education. So if they want to go online or take something part-time or whatever. We have an internal Aboriginal Relations Committee, and I'm going to an event in Toronto, and one of the events is we're talking about communication. And like most big companies, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And it can undermine an initiative. You've got a training initiative going on here, and you want to place all the workers, and then all of a sudden you find that those jobs have already been placed. You know, we can't have those kinds of things. It has to be some internal communications. And that's through the Aboriginal Relations Committees at senior level, and they take the message back down to their particular areas. We have a statistical database system where we can pull up numbers and we know where, what's good or bad, or what's the retention rates and where folks are from. We have Aboriginal awareness training, and on October 2nd, actually, October 5th, we had an Aboriginal training session at our corporate office for some of our senior folks and in HR. We've had over 12 different sessions of Aboriginal, and that's ongoing.
You don't want to ask your question.
To your question, there's a variety of different people that we have used. And Human Resource Council, for example, the Aboriginal, they have a workshop that's geared towards HR people. There's cultural workshops that we've held that really focus in on the local culture, say up in the Fort McMurray region. Now, if we're doing a project out in Kitimat, we certainly wouldn't be bringing a Cree person over to do it over in Kitimat, but we would get one of the Haisla folks to do that locally. We've had other practitioners that have delivered courses, and their focus is on history and to get the background. There's other people that have done workshops on what are some of the issues and how can industry play a role in that. So it depends upon the audience, on which practitioner and which program that we're going to do. Like, who is it and what is the message that we want to, or the information that we want to provide that audience with. So it would vary depending upon the audience. And just the last couple of points, we've got a 3-year strategic plan, which I talked about a little bit, and it's now approved in the company. It's company-wide, actually, the model that was developed by Sandy. We've also joined national organizations, and this is to help us understanding national issues, what role industry has to play in those particular issues, what are some of the best practices that are out there that, hey, that's a good idea, we could use that in our particular company as well to enhance our Aboriginal engagement, our Aboriginal employment. We're active, we're a member of a number of different organizations, but we're active in 2 national ones that kind of fit where we are within the company. And that's it. Questions?
Your transportation, you mentioned a bus. Is that like a school bus or a motor coach?
It's
Are you applying for
You're there to accommodate the worker.
yeah, Saddle
How do
Lake.
you go?
Saddle Lake bought the buses. They own the buses. They're providing.
Is that like school buses?
No. They're like small coach buses, and they're very nice. They're very comfortable. Yeah. Oh yes, yeah. They started off with a 15-passenger van, and then we went from 15 and up. So now they're transporting 100, so they need larger.